Welcome to April and Debbie Dish the Truth on Weight Loss, where we share the raw, real, and sometimes messy truth about our weight loss journeys.
I am Debbie, a weight loss coach who has lost 100 pounds and have been living in maintenance for 4 years.
And I'm April, a weight loss coach, currently down 75 pounds and continuing my journey to lose 100 more.
Together, we'll explore the ups, downs, and everything in between, showing you that lasting weight loss is possible no matter where you are on your path.
Yes. And this week, we are going to discuss what happens after you have a period of time where you've overeaten and had weight gain and looking to get back to routines.
Hmm, I think that's a great subject this week.
Well, we both had it happen recently, so we thought this was a great thing to share what we each experienced and how we each, chose to kind of work on moving on from it.
And you know what? I don't think that I have started moving on from it
Okay.
action wise. Thought wise, I have. So I'm going to be completely honest. I got on the scale this morning and I saw 155. Again, I know when I talk about my weight, and in April too, like we are both somebody's goal weight in this world. We are both somebody's goal weight.
Yep.
Whether we're somebody's goal weight or not doesn't matter if it doesn't work for us. And my weight doesn't determine whether I'm happy or sad or having, but I'm aware. And I know when I gained my 110 pounds that I would watch the scale go up and I'd be like, oh, it's okay. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. And now, having been on that journey to losing 100 pounds, I know I'm aware that, and I think that that is so key. So what do we do after that? So today, Kevin and I went to the grocery store. I am not a food prepper. I think I've probably mentioned on this podcast, and for anyone who knows me, I don't cook. And so today I went and got things. April will be so proud of me. Some really protein packed yogurts. I got some nuts. I got the things that I like and not out of restriction because I am a snacky eater. So I've got some cheese, I've got some nuts, I've got some high protein yogurt and some boiled eggs. And I know my body likes those things. I know I like how they taste. So that's what I'm doing. Today I am setting myself up with some of my food planning and knowing that just because I weigh this weight now, I've weighed this weight before and I've weighed less and I've weighed more. And I get to decide what I want to do with where I'm at now.
That's great. And we're going to delve into what we experienced, when we had our gains and all of that. And you've talked about how you've kind of worked on getting back to your routine and what feels good and the food choices that you made when you went to the store. And I just wanted to touch upon that because you said you chose foods that make you feel good, right?
Mhm.
So throughout life, I know me, I've heard good food, bad food a lot.
Yes.
And we are on this train where everybody's trying to make all foods good foods, right? Nothing's necessarily inherently bad, and you're not bad for choosing to eat them. There is also a place where some might give you different feelings, right? If you eat some cheese and nuts and yogurt, you feel good in your body and you feel energized. So I
Hmm.
have been working on something about giving foods numbers in the sense for
Oh,
me, right?
yeah.
Because numbers are so neutral by themselves, right? So for me, I've been trying to say like level 10 foods. To me, a level 10 food, I'm making that mean it's got a lot of nutrients. It's going to make me feel energized. Your yogurt would fall into that. For me, my eggs, like a breakfast of eggs and sweet potatoes and some chicken sausage or whatever I like that would be a level 10 breakfast for me. If I chose to have a muffin for breakfast, that would be like a level 1. Like, I'm going to enjoy that emotionally and physically, it's gonna taste good, and all of these things for the soul, it's gonna be enjoyable, whether maybe it's a work breakfast or whatever. But the level 1 isn't necessarily gonna take me to 12 o'clock when I might want lunch, right? So there's nothing wrong with that choice. It's just me knowing that I've chosen a level 1 food that most likely I might need something in a few hours, and maybe I should also bring a level 10 along with the muffin, right? So maybe have the yogurt with the muffin. So that's something I've been working on in terms of quote unquote labeling the foods in my brain to kind of disassociate the good bad energy.
Do you know, I love that because we look at, oh, I had a muffin. I didn't overeat it. So why, I should be losing weight or I
Mhm.
shouldn't feel hungry because it was a big muffin. But like you said, it was a muffin and they are so good. I love morning glory muffins. I like blueberry muffins. I like muffins, right? But I can eat it at 8 and at 10 I may want something else. So I like that and I like the neutrality of the number because good and bad, we're judging again.
Yeah. Mhm.
Treat. I mean, we say we're getting a treat. Well, I don't I don't have a treat. I eat food. I just I don't need a treat. I get a choice. And so I like that you're doing that. It's just kind of a reminder to yourself what's going to sustain you the longest.
Yeah, I've been finding it helpful and having to plan. I am a planner.
Yep.
I plan my week out usually on Sundays. So I kind of am looking at a balance of how to incorporate 1 through 10 of foods on my days. They're different levels. Some can have more and maybe pairing a 10 with a 1 and stuff like that. So for me, it's new. I've just been doing it for a couple weeks, but I have been finding it very helpful in terms of negating the emotion about what choices I'm having, but also inviting how can I balance a one food so that it might last a little longer within my day and I would still feel good having it in my body.
Yeah. I think that's so great. And you can have a muffin with a boiled egg or something. You know what I mean? Like something that's going
Yes.
to bring you further in the day.
Hmm.
And I think when we do get to these points where we have regained, or I don't even want to say regained because I didn't regain that. Like I've put some extra weight on my body that I don't normally have to have. I guess it is a regain, but I also think that we tend to look at regaining as a negative and as a
Yeah.
failure. And it's not a failure. Sometimes we eat more than we need, and it's an opportunity to be aware. Like, why are we eating? I can tell you that my 15 pounds that I have gained has been stress eating. I know it. Um, I know it for a fact, and I keep thinking the more I eat, the less stressed I'm going to be. But if you really think about it, I'm still going to be stressed about whatever situation I am working on unless I work through that situation and figure out why I feel I need the food. And if I overeat, it's just going to bring more stress because then I could go into negative self-talk or, back into my old eating habits. And so that's why I think getting back to what we know works for us and spending the time to say, stress isn't going to fix overeating isn't going to calm my stress. It's not going to take away what I need to do. It's actually just filling my time with something I don't need to be doing right now. Like instead of eating, I could be working on what is stressing me out and just being mindful that this is a moment. This is a moment. And what do I get to choose in my next moment?
Absolutely. I agree with all of that. And I think it's so important when you said that you were working on not attaching the negative thoughts to the scale being up again, right? You had made choices, and that was something. So when I had my overeating the previous week, I was super emotional. A dear friend of mine has lost two people in her life, and very tragic and sad, and my heart's breaking for them. It also triggered stuff about when I lost my mom. Just brought up all these emotions that I started to overeat, and my overeating, looking back at it, was avoidance. I was avoiding trying to feel all of the sad. I did not want to feel overwhelmed by grief of death again. That's what I was doing, right? So then when I got to the point where I had hit enough of overeating, I looked at Kevin, I said, okay, I did not need to do that. I need to make a plan and get back to my routines. I was ready. So of course the negative thoughts are going to come. Just like you had those moments, the thoughts are going to come, but there's a choice whether you stay with those negative thoughts or you choose to move on from them. So in a sense of like I had the negative thought like why can't I be sad without food? Why can't I just be normal? But I am normal.
Mhm.
And that's what I told myself, and I had to talk like, if you look at most people, I'm not gonna say everybody because I don't, absolutes are, not real, but a lot of people will overeat at some time in their life, whether it's over a breakup or a death or a divorce, or it could be happy. You're at a party and
Oh,
you drank too much and you ate too much, or it was the holidays, or there's reasons. But people who don't tend to have weight issues don't attach negative to that. They don't even analyze it. They were like, "Ooh, that was a lot." Next day, back to your regular routine of eating. They don't even make it a conversation. We make it a conversation, which is good for us to have so we can talk through it. But that's the point where I told myself that this is normal. I was not prepared for what happened. I had all these emotions that I went back to a a coping mechanism that I've had for 40 years of my life.
yeah.
So, and I'm working on it, but that's still my brain's natural thing sometimes. And I did it, and then I got to a point where it was enough, and now I'm moving forward from that. And that's the best thing to do. So during that week that I was overeating, the scale did go up. I think it was about 7 pounds. And then I went right back to making my food plans, drinking my water. I really focused on the water. 80 to 100 ounces for me is my goal. I food prepped. I focused on the protein because I know that's what feels best to me. All these things that I know feel good to me, I went back to doing immediately. And well, after a week. So not immediately.
When you were ready immediately.
Yeah. And then the following week, I was back to where I was. The 7 pounds had coming off because a lot of it was inflammation of foods I don't normally eat, very high salty foods, all of those things. I'm not saying that's going to work for every or happen to everybody. And sometimes the weight doesn't come off immediately. But even if it takes a couple of weeks, the important thing is to not beat yourself up, not restricting, because if you feel restricted, you're going to feel punished. And punished is going to
Mhm.
most likely, especially if you have an overeating tendency, you're probably going to overeat if you're making yourself feel like you're being punished or that you did something wrong. So giving yourself time and giving yourself care of getting rest and compassion for how you dealt with the whatever you dealt with and moving forward that way.
It's so good. And you talking about dealing with sadness, and I'm so sorry for your friend's loss and how it has impacted you. And I mean, because it is hard to deal with death and or the sadness from that, anger, guilt. I mean,
Mhm.
there are a lot of emotions that it's easier to say, I don't want to deal with you, so I'm going to eat. And it doesn't make sadness, guilt, and I'm throwing guilt and anger in for myself, but talking, you know what I mean?
No,
Like,
those are there,
yeah,
and
like,
yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
and they're hard to feel. So eating is good to feel, and I don't have to deal with that right now. But like you said, you are going to come to a point, and we both did, where this eating isn't solving the sadness, the stress, the guilt, and you know, sometimes the more we ignore those feelings, the louder they talk, and we just continue to drown them out. So being aware of that and knowing when they're coming, like you knowing when, you know, dates around your mom's death and her birthday, and you wrote those letters to yourself. I said to Kevin today, Easter is, I wonder what my sister Diane is doing for Easter next week. And he's like, why? And I said, because I know from last year that I missed everybody, didn't acknowledge it, and I overate. And that was a year ago. And I'm remembering now and getting ready to set myself up so I don't do it again. But it's like you said, just getting back into our routine and knowing. when we call it enough, whether it's a week, 2 days.
Mhm.
Like I went to the store yesterday and I am not gonna lie, I spent like 15 minutes in the store looking for what candy bars I was gonna eat because last night I knew I was going to have a good time with candy bars. And I bought a king size Reese's and a king size Heath bar. And the Reese's, I'd never had them. They're the little squares with the Reese peanut butter in them. Oh, so good. And I ate some of the Heath bar. And when I got up this morning, the Heath bar king size, and I never buy those, was on the counter. And I said to Kevin, "Are you going to eat any of this?" And he said, "Nope." And it was a king size candy bar. Those are not cheap at the convenience store, but for me, it was better for me to throw that in the garbage because I know if I ate it today, I would not eat it because I was hungry. I would eat it because I felt I deserved it and I bought it, so I better eat it to get it gone out of the house. And sometimes in the moment, we make choices that don't support ourselves, our journeys, but later we can make that decision. And you know, throwing away food, do I love doing it? No, but I showed up for myself today and how I want to continue my journey.
I I love everything you said. And there's two big points I would like to hit upon. And one, I think actually both of them could end up being a future podcast. But one was when you talked about guilt and rage being a part of grief. And I think that's so important to acknowledge for people. Myself, I definitely had anger and guilt after my mom passed. And my friend who had a loss talked about how angry they were feeling. And they said, I shouldn't feel that way. I said, absolutely, you should feel that way because of whatever reason you have. I think we have this people make us feel, or we let them make us feel, society, however we phrase it. But in given circumstances, we think there's this ideal way we're supposed to feel or behave or act. And it's just not true. If you've lost somebody early, or if you've lost somebody for whatever reason and you're feeling some kind of anger about that, that is so normal. And to say to yourself that I have anger and I'm going to process this, like that's one thing. But to tell yourself I have anger and I shouldn't, that is so damaging to yourself and unjust, really. And it's going to make the grief process much harder if you're not okay with whatever you're feeling.
Mm.
Absolutely seek help, talk to somebody, it will be so helpful, but I really wanted to acknowledge that you included that, and I think it's really great that people hear us talk about, and it's such a good topic that, like I said, maybe if people might find that helpful, they can let us know. We can absolutely talk about that again more later. The other thing that you talked about was throwing away food.
Ah.
One, I wanna give you a high five for throwing away that candy bar. Two, I can so relate because I have, always been a person about not throwing away, reusing it, freezing it for later, using it for another whatever or just eating it. But I've been working on the throwing it away, and I just had this very similar situation happen where at work, we all decided to have donuts or muffins. And the girl, my coworker, went and got these muffins. I'm gluten free, so they were gluten free muffins, and they also had gluten free donuts. So I fit in. I had some of the donuts. I had like five of the donut holes, and then I had half of the muffin. So I did look at it, and I thought my stomach would not feel well after having a whole muffin. To be honest, I get sugar belly really quickly sometimes, so I navigated that. I took the rest of them home, thinking I would eat them the next day. Right. The next day came, and I thought I really don't want them. Like I had it, it was fine, it was good. There was no desire to have more. And I did the same thing, which is so funny. I asked Kevin, "Are you going to eat these?"
Oh my.
So I think it's so funny when you said that. And he's like, "No." And I said, "Okay." And I chucked them. Now, before I would have wrapped them individually and put them in the freezer for a later day. But I thought about it, and I'm a numbers person too. And I thought about it in my head, like, okay, let's say the package of um donuts was $4. I don't know what it was, but let's just say it was $4. and I had some, and my coworkers had some, and there was some left. So multiple people enjoyed these for $4. If you would go to like a bakery or a Dunkin' or whatever, the donut's going to be about $2 or $3. So it's not like more money was spent,
Yeah.
and we enjoyed it. There's no difference if I throw that away. The money's been spent. It was a value that was worth it for that serving that I chose to have, and now it's done. I don't need there's no benefit to saving it for later. And sometimes I do still save it for later, but I think there's a moment when throwing it away, and I think a lot of people have this, you feel like this is such a waste. And I think in that moment, what I'm telling myself now is that's where the number part was helpful for me. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, but if I would have went somewhere and just bought a single donut, it would have been about the same price and there would have been no leftovers. Hopefully I'm
True.
explaining what I'm saying
Yes.
well. So, yeah,
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Like you could have had one that was $3 or you bought a pack and you got the same thing. You got what you wanted
right.
out of that. And I think you mentioned how you either throw it away this or finish it. I am definitely like if that Heath bar was here tonight, I'd be like, I need to finish it. Or if I have a pint of Ben and Jerry's ice cream, I know I talk about it all the time, but I can't take I can. Let me correct that. I can take the cover off and eat a third of a cup. I can do that, but my brain doesn't see it that way. So I think there is power in being able to throw something away. And
Mhm.
I know a lot of people may disagree with that and be like, you're wasting, you're wasting, you're wasting. But if I'm putting it in my mouth and I don't need it and I'm eating it to solve anything but hunger, and I know I'm not going to eat it again later, why save it? Right? Like you got what you needed out of those donuts and you put them away because you were done.
Yeah. I think the wasting food and the throwing away, like I said, I think that could also, we could do that if other people have some issues with that. I think we could talk about that again too, because I think it's such a lot of us are raised that way, first of all,
Hmm. Yes.
especially way back when we were growing
Yeah.
up. Like,
All
do
those years.
not waste food, eat the food. If I didn't eat it, it was saved for later. Like that's just what I was taught. And there is value to that. You don't want to be necessarily excessively throwing away food all the
Right.
time and just
Right.
for your own budget. You know what I mean? You want to
Yes.
try to be responsible with your finances or whatever, but in the sense of like if it's a level 1 food for me, like I said, that's kind of how I'm working on looking at stuff. So that was like a level 1. It's just pure enjoyment. I'm not necessarily getting any, satiation from it. It's just enjoying it. And I enjoyed it. And I didn't need to do that again that particular week. And if I wanted again, then the store will always have more available. So they'll, but it would be more of an effort to go to the store again, which I don't necessarily do. But I think we have to look at what is wasting. Is it wasting food in the sense of throwing it away, or is it wasting your goals by keeping it? So
Mm.
again, there's just multiple ways to look at what wasting means to you, right?
Yeah, and it comes back to what you share so often, and I love, and I think I say it every time, like it's a choice, right?
Yes.
It's a choice. You can finish eating it, and that's great, and enjoy it in the moment, or you can choose to save it or throw it away. I just know for me, like today for throwing that candy bar away, I want to continue on my journey differently. And that's what I needed to do for that. I also, we were talking beforehand about your tablet and getting things writing down. And I have, there's so much power in writing. And I know that for me, that will be something that will help me get back on track too. Like writing about what is stressing me out, writing about almost, I don't want to say a forgiveness letter to myself, but an understanding letter to myself. Like, I understand, Debbie, what we've gone through the last few weeks and what we're dealing with. And like, this is normal for me to slip right into this. And, what we need to be willing to do is show up with a different norm. Like, as we in our past, we've overeaten and continued to overeat until we gained the weight to where we are. Now we get to overeat and be like, okay, we can continue this, or we can do your planning, your food prepping, my food prepping,
Yep.
journaling, and understanding. I think again, it comes back, and I also agree, compassion with ourselves when we get to this point, because if we are not compassionate with ourselves, we will never want to continue the journey to, not in a loving way anyway, in a way that feels good and supports us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I compassion changed my whole life and weight loss journey around because as I've talked about previously, I was a big binger for most of my life, overeating on a daily basis to the point of sick. And I would always try to work on it and quit and stop, but constantly beating myself up when I tripped up or went back to it. And again, with the don't restrict, I would beat myself up and then I would inevitably overeat again because I felt so bad and so shameful. And now I'm at this point where I did it last week, the week before, and I was like, okay, well, that makes complete sense. You were having a very emotional time, and that's how you dealt with it. And now we move on. And there was no beat up. There was no, it was just empathy and compassion for myself and understanding that that's how I processed that week. And now I want to process this coming week differently and move forward. And so there's more there's more positivity for yourself, like you said, to choose compassion and to look forward and to reach out to somebody, and tell somebody, text somebody, or journal. We talked about the journaling. We were talking about the tablet before the call because I'm still not very savvy at using the tablet and I have a stylus um but one thing that I found was super cool was when I wrote down whatever I was writing in the journal, I could just, one button and it erased everything. So I could purge my thoughts and feelings and whatever they were, and then just boop, it was all gone. Which to me I enjoyed. One of the reasons I always struggled with like a paper journal was just sometimes my thoughts aren't the nicest or the most coherent or whatever. And didn't necessarily always want to see it again or have anybody else find it or whatever it was. And now it feels like this infinite space of possibilities that I could just write whatever and then just at a click of a button, it's all gone. I got it out of my system and I felt much better doing it for sure.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You got it all out and you don't ever
Mhm.
have to look at it again because it's
Yeah.
gone. And you mentioned reaching out to someone. We both, I don't know which one of us was, it doesn't matter which one reached out first, but as soon as one of us reached out to the other and was like, definitely overeating, this, I'm very
Mhm.
emotional, and it's like, me too, and I think reaching out to someone like you suggested is so important because you don't feel alone. Like, we were both going through the same thing, so it gave us an opportunity to talk. And I know, like, you talked about journaling and we were talking about sleep beforehand. Like, this journey is all about what feels good to you and getting
Mhm.
back on track and what you're doing to reach your goals. And I know you found an article, right, that is really helpful for.
Oh, what was the article? Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
No.
Yes. So I Googled um, what to do after a week of overeating and weight gain. And I we're going to try to work on when we talk about these topics. I'm going to just do a basic Google search and see what comes up because there's so much information out there. And I think it's really helpful to see if for whatever say it's like 1 in the morning and you're feeling like, okay, I'm done overeating. What do I do now? The internet is a wonderful place.
Mm.
It's scary too. So be
Yes, yeah.
careful what you look for. But the first thing that popped up was how to recover after binge eating. And binge eating, you can overeating, eating too much. I wouldn't get too caught up in what the word is, but essentially you're recovering after eating to a point where you don't feel good anymore and you want to kind of move forward, right? So essentially it's hydrate, fill up on nutrient foods. So for me, that I would in my brain, I would be like, okay, level 10 foods, eat regularly, do not restrict, right? Give yourself sleep, all of these things. So this is from Ohio State Health and Discovery. And we'll include this link in our notes. It's very straightforward article. And I really liked because it said there are a couple things that stood out to me. And one in the beginning, it's a little paragraph in the beginning. It said you might feel sick and maybe a little guilty, but it's not the end of the world.
Mhm.
And that is so important for us to remember. This is not the end of the world. This was 1 week in a sea of whole year or years or however you want to look at it. But it's a moment and it's a moment you can choose to move forward from, right? So
Yes.
drinking the water, all these things. And then when they talked about not skipping meals, they talked about as well. Skipping meals can lead to binging again or overeating again. So we'll share this. You can quick reference it. If you're hearing it and have any other questions, as always, we invite you and encourage you to send us a email at April and Debbie dish the truth. Oh, it's April and Debbie dish the truth at gmail.com. Yes.
That is it. Yeah. And the not restricting, if there is anything that I would want to really focus on is when we get to this time, like you said, don't restrict because you're disciplining yourself for a choice that you made and it wasn't wrong or right. I'm going to go back to our friend Martha, it's wait or win. And maybe not win, but do you want to wait to reach your goal or do you want to move forward? So, but you didn't do anything wrong. You made a choice and restricting is punishing and just yeah. I'm glad you
Yeah.
brought that up because it is so important.
It is the restricting, and that's what I had a cycle of doing for a lot of my time in life when I would try to stop the overeating, thinking I had to be so strict and all these things. And after this week, I went back to my normal routine, and there was a lot of 10 foods, but I still did include level 1 foods this past week and got back to where I was. So you do not have to be punishing yourself, restricting yourself, feeling guilty, any of those things. You making a choice to eat from emotion or whatever reason it is no reflection on the person you are. And that's
Mhm.
a theme I really want us to keep driving home because, especially I know as women, we make it mean we're weak, we're not good enough, we're lazy, we're all these things. And it's just not true. It's just
Yeah,
not true.
it's not. And, you know, we can keep moving forward. There was something I was going to say when you were saying, I was like, I'm going to remember this and I forgot. But it doesn't say anything about who we are. It's our
No.
choice. And we were talking about what we were going to talk about next week too. And it comes back to choices and choosing. And so, April, you had seen this, right? Somebody had commented that they felt guilty about taking a day off from,
Taking some time for themselves on a Sunday, and they have a hard time with the thoughts around doing that. And I'll check in with her if she has a question or she would want us to reference her. I don't want to say her name because I didn't ask her permission, but it was a text that came through. And I just thought, wow, that is really impactful that we all of us, many of us, will feel guilty or again lazy because we're taking some time on a day that you have time. So this is a Sunday and this person has time to take for herself, but yet she has thoughts about doing that. At the same time, I think we really forget that our health, part of our health is taking time for ourselves, is resting, is drinking, is maybe reading a book or taking a nap or anything that you feel that's going to make you feel good and better. That's important to sustainable weight loss and health.
it is so important. And, I have I have a friend who thinks that if you're not doing, you're lazy.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
I have embraced the fact that if I am sitting on the couch watching that 70s show for hours, I'm not lazy. I'm relaxing and I'm enjoying watching a TV show that makes me laugh, makes Kevin laugh. Like we laugh together. And again, it comes down to a choice, and our body needs rest. Our body doesn't need to be going constantly. We listen to our bodies, and it's sometimes hard to learn, but it just takes time and practice. So I can't wait to
yeah,
talk about that next week because there's a we all think we should be moving a mile a minute doing exercise, but nobody, or few people probably embrace how amazing a nap is. Like
mhm,
that nap is just as important as walking 3 miles, we need it all.
mhm, yes.
Yeah. So that's next week, and we can't wait to talk to you about it. And thank you for joining us this week. We are still having so much fun with this. We hope that you are getting something out of it every week. And visit our Facebook page, April and Debbie Dish the Truth on Weight Loss. And you can check us out everywhere and share us with friends and family. And, go out today and keep blooming because Garden of Life is amazing. So go grow
Yeah.
it. Mm.
And remember always, wake up willing to do something that feels good to you.
Have a great week, everybody.
Bye.